So Islam Makhachev just reached out to Michael Chandler. He did it with a reference to a story of a dog who was always waiting for his owner to come back and was very loyal. So I think that's the thing is, obviously Michael Chandler has 2 wins in the UFC against Dan Hooker and Tony Ferguson, which the current Tony Ferguson and the current Dan Hooker, yeah, I guess you could say that the resume, anyone else higher, he's kind of like fallen short against. But, he gave Justin Gaethje some resistance. He gave Poirier a lot of problems. Like, I think if that fight would have gone to a decision, it's pretty safe to say that Michael Chandler would have won that fight against Poirier. He almost had Oliveira out there in round 1, but Oliveira weathered the storm. So Michael Chandler is always, I think he's better than people let on. I think it's just that his style of wanting to entertain us fans gets overlooked whenever he gets either KO'd or he loses via decision or gets, submitted in the final seconds of the fight. I guess MMA spectators are always like that, where they do just kind of care about the result, which I get, but he still managed to be in that stratosphere of fighter and give those guys such a run for their money in the octagon, yet still keep a loyal fan base. And then he did The Ultimate Fighter. He's been waiting for this McGregor fight for a long time. He's saying, I'm not doing anything short. I think it's also he understands he wants that giant payday. Why would he not, to cap off your career, to have something to go out on? But I think, if he were to actually take that title shot against Islam Makhachev, I think, maybe Islam probably would have beat him. I definitely think if Islam wanted to fight Chandler, he would have to do it on the striking, because after seeing some of Islam's wrestling against the upper echelons of the competition, against an NCAA All-American, you could tell he'd have problems actually taking down Chandler, just because Islam's grappling is more dynamic than it really is, than it is like Khabib's, where he's just going to take you down by force. Like, even when Islam, knocked down Charles Oliveira and then submitted him, you knocked him around a little bit and turned a black belt into a blue belt pretty much. So, it's easy to see the puzzle pieces of where Islam Makhachev, his grappling works in MMA, but if it was like a straight up grappling match, I really don't know where that would go. I'm not going to say that he'd do bad, but I would just say it would be a whole nother recipe. But, time will tell. I can't really count Islam out all the way, but it's just interesting watching his style of fighting and seeing where his stats are truly at in detail. Not saying they're bad, they're just in detail. They're more dynamic, where Khabib's was just one-dimensional. I'm going to grab you against your will and hold you down, and there's nothing you can do. Islam went for an ankle pick against Poirier and all that stuff, so he'd have to really mix up against Chandler if that fight were to go down. And that's the thing is, Chandler, he might have pulled an upset of the century had he actually taken that one. So I'm not counting Chandler out against Islam as long as he fights, smart, if he were to take that fight. But I really think Chandler, right now at this point, you could tell from his announcement after UFC 303 got canceled, he was in a questionable state of mind. If it comes to the Sphere and McGregor pulls out a second time, or if the fight just doesn't happen because Conor pulls another out, which I don't want to put bad juju out there, but it's a very big possibility. Only 3 months of the Arman Sarukian suspension has been wasted, and then you could definitely take that title shot against Islam. Because if McGregor's not going to stand up, he's got to. I want to see Conor McGregor against Michael Chandler happen, and I'm not going to believe the fight happened until someone's hand gets raised, because we have been led on for this matchup for way longer than we've needed to be. And it's almost like, it's not even like Conor McGregor versus Uriah Faber, where it's obviously Conor would have won that fight, but with Michael Chandler versus Conor McGregor, that's a compelling matchup where I see it swinging either way. But if that fight goes down, definitely I think the winner of that fight should get the next title shot. And if it's Chandler, it might be a underdog story in the making against Islam, because he does have some credentials over there that would give Islam style some things. But if Conor McGregor got that title shot, oh boy, would Islam smash Conor to bits. Because I know Conor's got wrestling defense, but I don't think his is good enough to negate any sort of Dagestani fighter at that point. But I think only time will tell. I mean, it's a great offer from Islam. I know that rambles a little all over the place. I would have loved to see Islam versus Chandler, but you gotta really commend Chandler for sticking to the mission and sticking to getting Red Panty Night and sticking to getting his big payday that he's earned for a long time, because his fight career is a lot bigger than a lot of people like to give it credit for. But that's what I gotta say. So yeah, no, it's like, Islam, thank you for the offer, because now that would actually be a matchup we never thought we wanted. I would usually originally go with Islam versus Gaethje, but Gaethje's going to need some recovery time before he even thinks about stepping up against Islam Makhachev. But yeah, I guess we'll just see where this thing pans out, and if UFC 306 at the Sphere falls through with Chandler versus McGregor, where they're supposedly targeting, that's where they're allegedly targeting, then yeah, Chandler should just move on, face Islam now, and at least get compensation. And it might not seem like the most earned title shot out there, but Chandler has given so much to the UFC without, people realizing it. He's been entertaining every time he was on a fight. And I was even in the crowd at UFC 274 watching him KO Tony. And that was impressive. But that's what I got to say. Cheers.